So I wanna speak to your journey, right? Because I'm pretty sure you weren't always like this.
No, I had a wild journey.
Right? So before you were Kenneth Montgomery, today, who were you before that?
I was a kid who I was an only child who grew up with two parents who were part of the Great Migration, meaning that they came from the South. So when people were talking all this stupid, the migrants, migration, how do you think this world was formed? This world was formed because Europeans said, you know what, we want to live privileged. So we're going to take those millions of groups of people and we're going to move them from this continent and put them there and put them there. And then we're going to form these demarcations and lines and voila, the world. My parents were a part of they were seeking a better life for themselves from the South. And they came to Brooklyn and they had a kid. And they thought they were seeking opportunity, and they had that kid in a town in northern America, the so-called liberal New York, where we were fighting bad police, bad schools, crack, violence, HIV, heroin, you name it. And they did their best to instill some values in me. Unfortunately, my dad was someone who this country beat him. He was beaten and broken about time I came along, in my opinion. We had a terrible relationship. I didn't hate my father like a lot of people do. I loved him. I didn't like him as a person because I was fortunate and lucky at an early age to understand that he was a shell of himself. My mother was strong, bright, and someone, if she had the opportunities that I had to go to college, I couldn't imagine what her life would have been like. But she made the most of what she had. But I was a kid growing up in Brownsville, Crown Heights, some parts of Bed-Stuy, even in Queens, navigating through a very dangerous New York City with parents who were fighting every day, with a father who was, trying to be abusive, but my mother wasn't a wallflower. My mother fought back and fought. I fought with her as a child, a little child. So I grew up with a lot of trauma. I had my godmother's little sister who was like an aunt. She was an alcoholic, and we were coming from poverty. Deprivation and poverty makes for really bad relationships sometimes. And sometimes a lot of trauma as well. She had sex with me as a child, 3, 4, 5 years old. I stopped it.
What's good, y'all? Are y'all having a hard time starting conversations in large rooms? Do you need to find more effective ways to draw attention to yourself without wearing a fancy outfit? I figured out a hack. You need some Financial Revolution merch. Everything is a staple piece that represents Black wealth. You are what you wear, so make sure you join the rest of the billionaires and get some FR merch. We have hoodies, sweatsuits, t-shirts, and much more. Make sure you visit www.financialrevolution.com and use code podcast for a special 10% off. Again, go to www.financialrevolution.com and use code podcast for a special 10% off. Let's get it, y'all.
Myself. And the reason why I stopped it was because I didn't want to tell anyone, because in my young, impressionable mind, I felt like if I had told my mom would have killed her. And then I would have been with my dad. And at that young age, I had already realized, my dad can't take care of me. And so I had to hold that in. And when I turned about 5, 6 years old, I punched her in the face, stopped. There's some other abusive stuff that she had done. So I think from that abuse with her, the abuse I was dealing with my dad, the environment that he had created in the home, and then growing up in, I grew up in a rough, you can't see it now, but I got sliced in the face fighting. Wow. Brooklyn Uptown fighting. I went to Martin Luther King High School. I had friends who died in high school and middle school. I had friends who killed people in high school and middle school, went to jail and other crimes. I had friends who started smoking drugs when we were in high school and burnt themselves out. Some of them got themselves together, some of them didn't. And I didn't have the resources of many of my peers who are lawyers now, who come from a different class background. But I had 2 hardworking parents who instilled, despite all that trauma that I was dealing with, I was fortunate enough to in my head dream what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. And I got exposed to black nationalism at a very young age because of my beautiful aunt, my mother's baby sister, Aunt Edith Pittman. Actually, if you guys are into African art, there's an African art museum in Restoration Plaza that you must check out.
Yes.
That's their museum. But she exposed me to all these great people and great information, and that was my base. So even though I was doing all this nonsense,
you still had exposure to that.
I was schizophrenic. I was dreaming about being a lawyer because I read Malcolm X's autobiography at a very young age, and I was viscerally angry at the chapter where the teacher told him he shouldn't be a lawyer, he should be a carpenter. Yeah, so in my young mind, I was like, damn, what does this lawyer think about? And to me, that was it. And that was, so I had on this side that dream, and on the other side I had an edge because I think the trauma and all the things I had gone through when I was younger. So look, my mother was like, yo, you got to get out of here, you know, because the doctors had told her if I would have moved back a little bit more, my throat would have got slit. So she was just a worried mom, like most black moms with children in this world. And I got accepted. I only applied to 3 schools: Hampton, Hunter, and Howard. Hunter came, but my mother's like, you getting out of here. You ain't going in. You getting out of New York. I never forget, I was growing up, me and my boys, many of them that I'm tight with today, who are very proud of me, and we love each other deeply. I never forget, we was in a car driving across the bridge, and I was like, yo, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to Harvard, go to Harvard Law School. They was like, nigga, you ain't going to be no lawyer. You're going to jail. You're going to Rikers Island just like the rest of us. Everybody start laughing. And I'm going to tell young people, yo, any negative thing that happens in your life, yo, find a space and time to make that negativity inspiration. Like everything negative in my life has been ultimately positive. It's inspired me.
Motivation.
Yeah.
What's good, y'all? Are y'all having a hard time starting conversations in large rooms? Do you need to find more effective ways to draw attention to yourself without wearing a fancy outfit? I figured out a hack. You need some Financial Revolution merch. Everything is a staple piece that represents black wealth. You are what you wear, so make sure you join the rest of the billionaires and get some FR merch. We have hoodies, sweatsuits, t-shirts, and much more. Make sure you visit www.financialrevolution.com and use code podcast for a special 10% off. Again, go to www.financialrevolution.com and use code podcast for a special 10% off. Let's get it, y'all.
So, you know, I got out of my mother got me out of New York. Hampton's acceptance came first. It was an out-of-state school that came first. She paid $900 at the time, which was a lot of money in, I guess, 1989, 1990, whatever, 1990. And then Howard's came. I was like, I want to go to Howard. She's like, listen, I paid. We don't got an extra $900. Take your ass to Hampton. If you like it, no issue. If you don't, transfer. And I had never been on a college campus before. Like my aunt Edie, I told you about, she bought me a book called Your Ticket to Law School in 4th grade. And when I was in high school, all my friends was hustling, shooting, fighting, doing all kinds of shit. I knew my limits. Yeah. I had a point that where I was like, all right, I'm out now. And I wasn't a sucker growing up, and I don't mean that. I mean that in the sense that I was okay with fighting. I was okay with what, like, and all right, I'm still out. And I guess I got to Hampton, and I was like, wow. But in high school, I studied for the SATs myself. Did very well for someone who had no tutor or anything like that. I graduated Martin Luther King High School, and I'll never forget, I got to Hampton, and that was the first time I had ever been on a college campus. No, you know what? That's not true. They wanted to put me in special education in kindergarten because the school wanted to do it. And a teacher pulled my mom aside and said, you know what? Don't do that to your son. Don't let them do that to your son. He's really bright. He just finishes really early, and then he's just having fun, getting in trouble. She said, yo, take him to get the gifted and talented test. So my mother, with the help of the teacher, brought me to Brooklyn College, and I think I was in second or third grade by the time I took the test, and then all of a sudden, the same school administrators that was like, he's special education material, was like, yo, he should be skipped.
Wow.
So I always questioned all of this shit. So when I got so I took the test. I say that to say I took that gifted and talented test at Brooklyn College. But when I got to Hampton, that was the first time I really was like, wow, this is a college campus. And I was by myself. You know, growing up, people wouldn't have, you know, I had friends who were growing up messed up, you know, just messed up conditions. They're way smarter than me and brighter than me, but, yo, mom may be on drugs. Dad may be on drugs. Somebody may be dead or incarcerated. They didn't have the support that I had. When I got to Hampton, you know, I was fresh growing up. I always, you know, I was that kid growing up. I dressed, I like, you know, at a certain age in Brooklyn, people understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I got to Hampton, yo, these rich black people and not from drugs. And that was a culture shock for me. Like, I'm dating girls who 18 years old with a legitimate Benz. Like, it ain't from drugs. I was like, how did this shit happen? And the same guys that my mother thought she was pushing me away from because she didn't want to see me go down that road, they was in Virginia hustling, getting money, doing the same stuff they doing up here. So I got caught up. I was who I was. I got, you know, I've been in trouble before. I've been arrested. I was on federal probation in law school at 22 years old.
Wow. Because
I got in trouble when I was 19 years old. So, you know, I have a story.
Yeah,
you do. I'm not wagging my finger at people.
No. So I just want to ask you, right? Because I know there's gonna be a kid listening going through the same maybe worse situations. What kept you, like, you? I know you spoke on, like, all right, you also did have exposure and you had. I traveled a lot. You had a different. You also knew otherwise existed.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have social media these days, so we know otherwise exists as well.
You think?
I would say that, you know, it's nothing like being there and seeing it. So there's definitely a difference there. But you had a choice to make.
Yeah, no question.
What made you decide, like, I want to do something else? I don't want to live this life for the rest of my life. Like, you want to hear
you want to hear the moment that I was like, all right,
yeah, because look, you could have said, like, you know what, like, this law stuff is cool. It's something I really want to do. It's like,
listen, I was running around with dudes who were making a lot of money and millions. And if I wanted, ultimately, most of them blew it. Many of them are gone, dead, incarcerated. Some of them are chilling now. Good jobs that you would never know. I think ultimately, I'm going to tell you what it is. That base and foundation that I had of what happened to black people and our history from Africa and being introduced to the Malcolms and the Garveys and the Ida B. Wells and Elaine Browns and the Panthers and Fred Hamptons, that gave me, it was undeniable what that gave me. So now, I'm going to be honest with you, every time I got in trouble, I knew I was going to get in trouble because I felt it. I felt I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah. And
the moment when it just finally stopped, so it was two incidents happened. I was taking something that I wasn't supposed to be taking. No, I was taking some money to DC on a quick run by myself to get something that probably could have landed me life in prison. I got that. I got home. It was so stupid. And I got home. It was from Virginia to DC. I just went, got the money, got where I was supposed to pick up, back in the V in my crib. And I'll never forget, I sat down and I started, like, I felt depressed. I felt dark. So I was like, you know what? I ain't doing this shit. I'm done with this. And Cass was like, yo, I was like, nah, I ain't fucking with him. I'm done. And then, but I still wasn't done. I was still getting in trouble. So then I just wasn't doing that. So then I got in trouble I came up, it was a break from Virginia from college when I was like 20 at this point. And I came home and me and my he's like my god brother. He was one of my best friends. Babatu, we had gotten arrested for some dumb shit in Manhattan. It was dumb. It got dismissed. We got arrested. Mm-hmm. I was on federal, me and him both were on federal probation at the time. And I never forget, I got, his mother got us out. My mother didn't come. I had the moms who would be up till I came home, whether it was 6 a.m. or 9, 10. Like, yo, she ain't come get me. So I'm like, all right, cool. Got home. I'm in my room. My mom is wild. My mom's the type of mom, she would pick up a shoe, pick up anything. Like, that's who she was. So I hear her coming. I was like, oh, let me move trophy. Let me just make sure
you good?
Get my shit straight. But I was, she couldn't really do nothing with me by then. I'm 20, but she would try.
Yeah.
And she said, yo, man, you know what? I can only do so much for you. I could pay your legal bill. You talking about you want to be a lawyer, but you messing up, and I want you to get it together, but I can't get you together. And she's like, I hope you get it together though. And she left. I was ready for her to and I think the shock of that, it tripped me out.
Yeah.
And literally she left and I started crying out my face. Mm-hmm. When I tell you, you guys wouldn't know, it was a cartoon back in the day, Fantastic Four, and it was a character called Ben Grimm.
I don't know that.
He was made of brick.
Mm-hmm.
He was a brick. He was made of brick. My face broke out like that. And I'm looking in the mirror and I'm just staring at myself and I'm like, what the fuck? And that was it for me. Mm. That's what.
So how old were you?
I was 20.
Wow. 20 years old. Wow.
That's
so did you graduate?
Years ago.
Did you
31 years ago.
Wow. You look good. Did you graduate from Hampton?
I graduated from Hampton.
Okay, HBCU.
I had scholarships to some of the top law schools in the country, one of them being University of Michigan, which at the time I think was number 10 in the country. Wow. They gave me a scholarship for the first 2 years, which anybody who knows law school, that